Get the second microphone so when Zissel wants to. We'll just give him a mic. I'll sing back up to him. So, no, it's a busy morning. Wednesdays are busy mornings. It's good. So I lead the minyan in the morning. You're all welcome. It's 7:30. And then I teach a preschool seminar for our parents on Wednesday mornings called Bayit Bunch instead of Brady Bunch, Bayit Bunch. And so this is the third thing for the day already. So it's good. Okay. And I want to confess something. I'm the guy who I pick the nuts out. Yeah. I don't waste my time on peanuts. Actually, I love peanuts. I love peanut butter. But yeah, this was the expensive one. This had a lot of almonds and cashews. So I don't mess around. I cherry pick what I want.
Good for you.
Right, you're only going to eat so much a day. You gotta. Life is short. Hopefully not. Not that short. But you're right. There's no cashews in it. No, I got a cashew. Here. Here, I'll make sure you don't eat the mine. Look, the door handle. Okay. So this is. I was surprised not that this is the last one. Last week you said. I learned that it was the last session, which, if I just looked at my calendar, I would have known that, because I wanted to study more of Pirkei Avot with you, and so I also know I'm in the seam that I'm just going to teach for an hour, like I normally do, or about an hour, and I know some of you are here for the morning session with the other rabbi, but I think he had a funeral. Was that what he had? Yeah. Okay. So Rosalie asked if I can come early, and I said sure. So some of you haven't been present for our previous Pirkei Avot class. Pirkei Avot, loosely translated. Someone want to tell us what Pirkei Avot is? Right. Right. Nowadays, you say wisdom of our ancestors, right? Even though there are no women in Pirkei Avot, or at least they're not the quoted source. And unlike, it's a Mishnah. You remember that exercise we did when I told you the difference between a Mishnah and a Gemara? You're all looking at me like. So Mishnah is terse, direct statements of law or legal legal teachings. From what time do we recite the Shema? At night. And then it'll say from the hour that the Kohanim come to. So it's like very easy to memorize and very terse. Gemara is the discussions that spring from the Mishnah. And they do go on forever and ever and ever. 90% or more of Talmudic arguments go unanswered, right? It's sort of like akin to how we, before now the kids don't talk on the phone, now they text, which is, I think is bad. But, like when you're talking on the phone and you just have a meandering conversation with an old friend on the phone, that's a Talmudic discussion, right? It's not like you come to, a consensus. Oh, what do you think about, this one in the news, that, and then you just kind of like discuss, but you don't close the argument. Okay. So Pirkei Avot is different in that it's a Mishnah, but it's different than other Mishnayot in that it doesn't have a Gemara. So there's no further discussion from the later rabbis. Let's say if the Mishnah was written around the year 200 and the Gemara around the year 400 or 500, Pirkei Avot doesn't have Gemara attached to it. And it's not statements of law. It's just like, it's fortune cookie wisdom, right? But maybe that's, but really good ones, okay? Or really, sometimes not so good, but so anyway, we started going over some last week. So instead, realizing that we were out of time, what I thought I'd do is just study several selections with you today. And we'll see what you like. So I made a list of some that I think were interesting, and we'll just go look through them. So turn to page 243. And to save time, I'm going to make an executive decision. Oh, and can we pass? Are there yarmulkes? No. Okay. So if you don't have a yarmulke, and no flag. The yarmulkes. If we can pass around the yarmulkes. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of people with the microphone and then coming up and sitting down, it takes a long time. So if you say something, I will repeat the gist of your comment to the camera, and that way, just the gist of it. I won't get all of your detail. That way we don't have to waste time with getting up and down for the microphone. Okay. So we are in Perek Gimel, which is the third chapter of Pirkei Avot. And again, I cherry picked, just like I cherry picked my nuts with the cashews and the almonds. I cherry picked some Mishnayot for us to look at together from Pirkei Avot. Okay, so I'll look at this translation here. Does anyone want to read? How about I'll read it, and then you will react. Okay. So, Akavia ben Mehalel taught, Histakel b'shlosha devarim ve'ena taba l'yidei aveira. Like, look upon or ponder three things, and you will avoid falling into sin.
Are you reading 243?
Yeah, 243.
Chapter 3.
Oh, thank you. Ponder three things. I'm not going to, because I was going back in the Hebrew, I'm not going to translate exactly the way. Da me'en bata. Know three things and you will avoid falling into sin. So this is a good question for you before you read on. One of your grandkids comes to you and says, how do you avoid sin in this life? That's a pretty heavy question from a grandkid. Usually they say, hey, you got $20 in your wallet. But if someone comes to you and says, how do you avoid sin in this life? What would you say? Anyone want to offer a suggestion? Just a suggestion. Don't read ahead. Bridget, go ahead. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's a good philosophy. It's from the Torah portion of last week. Unfortunately, with all the anti-Semitism, that can lead someone to sin, right? Do unto others as they would, oh, okay. Right. Do unto others before they do it to you. It's actually, that's the Gaza operation, unfortunately. I mean, it's terrible, but it's true. No one thinks, I'm going to go into Israel because I was talking to someone. No one thinks this is good. Like, no one in Israel is like, look, there's some crazy members of the government, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, they're insane. And they represent an ugly face of Judaism. Normal Israelis, no one thinks that this is good. They just think it's a necessary evil. Like, no one thinks, like, how can Israel look at these pictures and be... No one thinks it's good. There's no rejoicing in Israel over what's going on. That is not happening. It's a necessary evil. The equivalent would be, just numerically, I'm ending up on Israel every time with everything I teach. The equivalent numerically would be if, not saying they would, but if Mexico elected a drug cartel as their government that is, clear about who they are, and they're just a drug cartel, and they're vicious, and they elected a drug cartel, and then that elected body, attacked and wiped out everybody at the University of Texas at Austin. That's what we're talking about in terms of scale. Killed all those people and took the entire freshman class of Southern Methodist University as prisoner and brought them back into Mexico. I wonder what would happen. I wonder what the response of the United States would be in that situation. There would be no more Mexico. So that's the equivalent numerically of what happened in Israel on October 7th. No one thinks that what's going on in Gaza is a good thing. It's not. No one thinks the death of civilians is something to be celebrated. It is not. No one thinks that any child not getting food is a good thing. It is not. It is an impossible situation to which there are no good answers. There are only better answers than others. And for a government, and so here I go, for a government, for Israel to be expected to shoulder that which no other country in the world would dare be asked to shoulder is ridiculous. And that does not excuse the government of Israel of responsibility towards minimizing the pain and suffering of the Gazans. And I don't think any one of us here are experts to truly understand, the numbers that are coming out. I don't know if you saw. So anyway, I taught earlier, so I can talk about whatever I want. And it's the last one. If you don't like it, too bad. So it's unbelievable to me that all these news organizations accept the numbers of the Gazan Health Ministry. Like the Gazan Health Ministry, they're like, Better Business Bureau approved in terms of they're a terrorist organization. They're a terrorist organization. They have never reported accurate numbers in the history of this conflict, and all of a sudden, they're the authoritative voice on how many people have been killed. They're not. It's inflated. They don't separate between. Now, that is not any child or any person to be killed. It's terrible. And I will say, and I will be critical of Israel here, Israel should have done more. They should have. They should have done more. So that's a debate. It seems interesting to me, and I guess I get the personal privilege of being the one who presents. It's interesting to me that before a phone call, the prime minister said he was maximized on terms of the aid, and then after a phone call from the president, all of a sudden he doubled that aid. If you were maximized before, how could you double the aid if you were already maxed out? So I do, and I think it is important, and you think about it, those are discussions that are happening in Israel now, not the right of Israel to attack. Normal Israel, the long-haired, tattooed beachgoers in Tel Aviv, and and no one is the most left and the right, they're all they believe in Israel's right, and unfortunately in the necessity of eventually dealing with Hamas and eradicating Hamas. They question whether this government is going to be able to do it. They question whether that goal is mutually exclusive from getting back the hostages. They question whether the government actually wants to get the hostages back, or whether Bibi is not as interested. But nobody thinks that it is a good thing for Hamas to be on their border. They can't go on like that. It's unsustainable. And normal Israelis do not think it's a good thing. No one thinks it's a good thing. It's a terrible thing. War is a terrible thing. When we bombed Dresden, it was a terrible thing. Okay, I'm sorry, Ken, you wanted to speak, and then I'll go ahead.
Yeah, after 9/11, when we do Iraq and Afghanistan,
Right, we made it.
worry about the people.
Right. So Ken was just bringing up 9/11. After that, we weren't as concerned. Yeah, yeah, Zissel. But that doesn't, it doesn't absolve us from the responsibility. I'm okay. I want us to hold ourselves to a higher standard, which I think the Israeli army does. Now, I'm not an Israeli soldier, but no, like the numbers, a 1-to-1 ratio of civilian to combatant death in an operation like this, at least from what I've read, is actually I mean, it's not good. Like, it's not good. It's good in terms of it's the best result. It's not good, right? Like, it's a good result. It's a terrible thing. Like, you're thinking like that, like, oh, what a disgusting thing. But it's unheard of because no one's ever been able to achieve such a good, like, such a low ratio no one has ever been able to achieve before. And so and so that Israel is being asked to simultaneously not exist and conduct itself like no other country has ever conducted itself before in the history of modern warfare is like just unbelievable. But anyway, Zissel, go ahead.
Just following up what you just said, which is very true. No country has had such a restriction on their soldiers as the IDF puts on the Israeli soldiers.
Right.
And
Zissel is saying that no other country restricts itself like the IDF does.
that's correct. The IDF soldiers are under terrible tension to respect civilian life.
Right?
They put themselves at risk
That's right.
in order to protect the Palestinian
Right.
civilians.
When you're an Israeli soldier, one of the first seminars, and Michael and Adrian's grandson's in the IDF right now. He's in service now, right? Wait, hold on one second, Zissel. Okay. Go ahead, Zissel.
What Israel is doing right now
Yeah.
in its defense against the attack from Hamas is going to be studied by war cabinets all over the world in the way it has been conducted.
Yeah. Yeah. So Zissel was saying that this is like a model of, I don't know. I mean, I've heard, and look, what do I know about military? I've heard some critique that the mistake that Israel made was not doing it all at once. In other words, not going in, and that by pushing everyone down south, that was a mistake. What do I know about military tech? Like, all I know is that we could have a resolution to this tomorrow if one party would disavow violence, and that hasn't happened, right? And so it's a terrible situation. It's a terrible time. So wait, I'll tell you, Michael, in just 1 second. My son was looking at the New York Times. I still read it. The New York Times this morning, and I'm like shaking my head at something. My son goes and asked me what's wrong, and I just said, the world's just a really messed up place. Anyway, Michael, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Hamas hides behind their civilians.
Right.
And when we drop the atomic bomb, we have all this discussion. This is so political.
Right. So Michael's point is, wait, when we had the atomic bomb, right? If we wanted to commit genocide, this war would have been over within 24 hours. They would have sent the planes in there. They would have bombed them to no end, and that would have been the end of it. So when they use words like indiscriminate bombing, like, give me a break. That Israel has sent its own children into the streets of Gaza shows a care for civilian life. Now, does that mean mistakes haven't been made or atrocities haven't been committed? Of course they have. It's war. Does that mean that everything has been done perfectly? No, it hasn't. But to call it genocide is just an irresponsible and just frankly, it's an irresponsible designation of terms. And this has nothing to do with Pirkei Avot, which is okay. Go ahead, Lana, and then we're going to move on to Pirkei Avot. Go ahead.
There's one source of news that supports Israel completely, and it's on the Republican side.
Yeah.
You watch anything from Newsmax or Fox News,
Yeah.
there's nothing negative coming from them. It is supportive of the...
Yeah. So Lana's
There's
point
some
is
extremes,
right.
I can't respond
Right,
to
so-
that, but normative
Yeah. It
right-wing
is.
totally supportive.
Look, and I know there are people here of different. There's people who are lean right. There are people here who are lean left, and I don't know what to say. Like I, traditionally have leaned not right. I'm just I'm more of a left person, and it is hard for me. It has been challenging. I'm much more of a centrist kind of person, just in general. So I'm sharing with my politics. Like my politics don't sway very far left or right. Like I think I'm fearful of the future of this country. I'm fearful of craziness on both sides, and I feel like it's this is the personal prerogative. You asked me to come teach, and I'm like not even. But I am scared that a TikTok culture has erased nuance from our conversation, and so that no one reads anymore, and the idea of people working with one another is rejected and only done, like everyone scores political points with the other side. No one's goal is to get anything done. And so so you end up with a right wing that's crazy and a left wing that's crazy. And they're both crazy. Like they're both like, you look to the far left and you look to the far right, and I just can't believe these people are in Congress. It just is, Rashida Tlaib and anyway. Okay, that's.
They are talking, the agenda is what I learned in Hungary, the communism, Marxism, Leninism, that's what they are talking by the book. And I came because of that, and now I have it again. Maybe I have to go back to Hungary. Okay, that note.
Yeah. So okay. So how to avoid falling into sin? Histakel b'shlosha devarim ve'ein ata ba li'yedei avera. If you do these three things, you will avoid falling into sin. Da me'ein bata, know from where you come. Ula'an ata holech, and to where you go. V'lifnei mi ata atid liten din v'cheshbon, and know who in the future will require you to give an accounting of your act, of who you are. So there's three things that you need to know: where you came from, where you're going, and who you are accountable to. All right, and then listen to this. What's your origin? Like, where did you come from? Tipa srucha, a putrid drop. Like, don't think of yourself as anything. So they didn't have a real understanding of anatomy. But they're talking about semen. You're like, that's all. Like, we all started out as like a glimmer in our daddy's eye, right? Like, that's all we've been. And we're just like microcells. Now, obviously, we're more than just that. Don't dismiss the egg and the female contribution here, which is like they kind of have a little bit more responsibility for that whole enterprise. But just like we come from very modest beginning, that's all we are. So know from where you come. So don't get that big. Ula'ana taholech, and where do you go? What's your destination? What's your destination? Limkom afar rima betolea. A place of dust, worms, and maggots. Because we come from a speck and we all die. And that's the Jewish, good, I'm getting into Judaism again. We all go the same way. Like we all start the same way, we end the same way. Right, like that's it. No one's, we go through our life is, who said it before? Someone over there said before, life is too short. Right. Before we know it, like life is too short. And look, and you all, I'm the youngest person in the room, so you all know this better than I am. But the older I get, the more I realize that people who have lived life have more wisdom. And time is that one resource that you can't, right? It's not, you can't get it. You can't. Yeah, you lose it or it's gone. That's why I love that you're all here. Like I know sometimes the pains and the body doesn't work the same way it did one time, but that you get out of the house and you come and you do and you like that. I have a lot of respect for that. I want just to know you to know, or like Susie and Rosalie, who like organize this year after year to give all of you a place to be and to have purpose. I think that's really because, there are people who I hope to be like you, that when I'm older and things are hurting, that I fight like hell to be active in the world. That's what I hope for. I hope I'm blessed with longevity and the gift of the koach, the strength to fight like hell to stay active. Because I don't want to be one of those people who just sit on the couch for the rest of my life, however long I'm blessed with. And so I have a lot of respect for all of you. So know that you come from a putrid drop and your destination, a place of dust, worms, and maggots. That idea, that ethic is rooted in the simplicity of the wedding ring. How many of you know the custom that what is a wedding ring not allowed to have?
Any kind of etching into it.
It could have etchings into it.
Oh.
It could have etchings into it. It has to be. It can't be broken. So it can have etchings, but it can't be broken. And what can it have, Janice? No jewels. Well, no, okay. How about this? Yeah, Ken, you're going to the jewelry store after this is over. You gotta open up the wallet. You gotta buy a new one. Okay. A wedding band. So a lot of people. A wedding band is not supposed to have stones in it. Why? Because, how does that relate to this idea? Modesty. Because you don't want them marrying for the wrong reasons. It's not supposed to be, and similarly, bridal dresses are supposed to be modest. And that's why, by the way, you were all buried in tachrichim, on shrouds, because maggots have easier access, and because we're all equal, and that's why in the Jewish burial it's a simple casket, none of these ungapach, Cadillac caskets. It's much cheaper. By the way, if any of you are making your plans or whatever, or wanna like I tell my wife, it's a plain pine box. That's it. Yeah, so there became a custom of placing the talit in those days it was just the male, but now of the talit with the person. And what you would do is you would cut the tzitzit so that you would render it not a talit anymore, right? It's not usable. Because if you were to bury throwing a bunch of dirt on a talit is not very nice. So it's not respectful. So you cut the tzitzit so it's no longer a talit. And then you bury it with the person because it's an expression that that person has been, like this is their talis. Like it's, like this. Out of all the things, like, the Egyptians bury them with this and that and the other thing, we bury with a talit. Like it's a statement. I actually encourage people, that's the most traditional way. I don't encourage people to do that. I encourage people to gift their talit to the next generation and to let them know how they want it to be used. Right? Like to make it meaningful, to take your talit and hopefully it's not one of those talises that hasn't been unfolded since your bar mitzvah, and then you open it like 70 years, and it's like it crumbles on the. So give your talit a little bit of a workout before you and then like I think that's a nice thing. Okay, the last one over here. Before whom you will be required to give an accounting. Before the ruler of rulers, the Holy One exalted. So, Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKodesh Baruch Hu. There is definitely in rabbinic theology this notion that we are accountable to, like, the rabbis construed God as, like, keeping score of everything. I don't know if we all think of God that way, but that's certainly present in rabbinic theology, that God is keeping score. I don't construe of God that way, but we can talk about that later. Okay. I'm going to the next one. Rabbi Hanan. So meanwhile, I made a list of 8 or 9 that we were going to go through, and at this pace, we're not going to do that. But all right, we'll try. Yeah, all right, we have next year. Okay. Rabbi Hananiah, Sgan HaKohanim, Omer. So Rabbi Hananiah, who is the deputy high priest, so he was a sage that was still alive when the temple stood. Remember, the temple, what year was the temple destroyed? 70. So these are the earliest rabbis who are on the cusp as Judaism is becoming something else. He's a rabbi, but he's Sgan HaKohanim, meaning he's like the deputy high priest. In those times, they were still trying to keep track of who was what in terms of the temple law, because they thought the temple would be rebuilt again. They couldn't, could anyone imagine, like if you told Rabbi Akiva, is the Bar Kokhba revolt in the mid 2nd century. If you told Rabbi Akiva, you're going to lose. Because Rabbi Akiva thought the Bar Kokhba revolt would lead to the building of the third, get rid of the Romans, reestablish the Davidic monarchy, and we're up and on our way, third temple, and let's get going. If you would tell Rabbi Akiva, here's what the good news. Rabbi Akiva, Bar Kokhba revolt's going to go very poorly. You're going to die. And it's going to go so poorly that we're going to end up scattered amongst all the nations of the world for 2,000 years. But then we're going to come back. You would have thought you were a nut job. The thought is crazy. Right? Like, who would think, what people 2,000 years later? And so it's bad now. It is bad. But we just celebrated Israel's 76th birthday. Would my great grandparent, your parents, yes. Your grandparents? How many of you knew your great grandparents? No?
My grandparents.
But your people didn't live that long, right? Yeah, but
Are you a great-grandparent? Are you a great-grandparent?
Yeah, but how many of you knew your great grandparents? I'm saying people who lived before the state of Israel. Right. Your grandparents knew the state of Israel, right? Most of them. Yeah? Just think about it, though. That it's not so many generations before where we knew people who didn't know Israel. And so, right, it's hard, and it's the work, and it is hard for us. You know, we're trying to have our cake and eat it too, is the reality. We're trying to have like both a Jewish and a Western mindset in a land that is not particularly hospitable to Jews and not hospitable to Western thought either. We're trying to bring a Western, democratic idea to a place in the country where that is not indigenous, right? I mean, if you think about like the way, like the fall. I'm reading a book about the fall of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, democracy is not in the blood of the Arab world, and that's not a dig on the Arab world. It's just a reality. Like that's not the inclination of the Arab world, and it hasn't been. And I mean, and that's the mistake that. Now I'm getting political again. Like, of course, these elections in Gaza are going to go poorly. Democracy is not something that is an ingrained value, and Hamas, we shouldn't dismiss them. They're not stupid. They're smart. They realized it was an opening to seize power. They're not committed to the democratic process. They're committed to seizing power, and they used it as an opening. And, Okay. Rabbi Hananiah, the deputy high priest, taught, pray for the welfare of the government, for if people did not fear it, they would swallow each other alive. What does this text tell us about Jewish view of authority or Jewish view of law? What are some of the thoughts that are present in this text?
Governments bring order to our society.
Right, governments bring order to society. So why does he have to make this statement? Because he realizes also that if he needs to say that governments bring order to society, in defense of governments, it means he also realizes that there is problems with governments. 2,000 years ago, they realized this is a guy, I don't remember his biography, but just like they knew the Romans. And so it's not that they're unaware of the perils of government, but they understand the need of government, right? Like we're all aware of that. And it used to be like our political ideology was like, how much government could you tolerate or want, right? If you were libertarian, you were Republican, and if you were more socialist leaning or more like hopeful of government role in like, that's all, it was a little bit easier back in the day. But even back then, they understood that government did provide an authority that kept everyone in check. But by him needing to say this, he also understands that governments are corruptible. And that's the struggle. It's sort of like Judaism has a reverence for authority. Like even the rabbinic sage Shmuel, he says, Dina Malchuta Dina, which means the law of the land is the law. Meaning, as Jews, we have an obligation to obey the law of this country. You can't be a fifth column. You can't be, not so into the Americas these days. You have the land that you live in, that's where you have to follow the laws of the land. That's a religious statement. Yes. Nadia.
First of all, Jesus as a Jew said that they should follow the rule of the government because he showed that a coin and there is at that time the ruler and we should
Right.
follow.
Yeah. There's a recognition of both the necessity of government and the limitations of government all wrapped up in the statement, which is very interesting. Without it, there is chaos. And with it, there's chaos. There's not chaos with it. There's not, but there are challenges with it for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Also, historically, Jews in Europe, they were usually in the cities which were directly under the rule of the king. And when that protection disappeared, it was really bad time.
That's right. Right. So Nani makes a good point. Not only in Europe, but also if you think about it, the Jews did, when there was a strong leadership, right, the Jews did well. When things became decentralized, that was harder often on the Jews, right? So under monarchies or even in the, the fall of the Shah in Iran, the Jews in the Ottoman Empire as opposed to the Jews in Arab lands after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, for sure. Yeah. Janice was just saying that she knew some people who, from Iran, and they said in the 70s, we're okay now, but if we lose the Shah, it's all over. And those words became prophetic, unfortunately. Yeah. I don't think, and maybe because we're not of the same generation, I never, up until the past, X amount of years, really questioned. I remember the first time that I heard a Holocaust survivor speak. We had a family friend who was a Shoah survivor of Auschwitz, and so I remember seeing the numbers, her arm, and I knew, but I didn't really know. And I remember hearing when I was a little boy, this is in the early, late 70s, early 80s, a Holocaust survivor speak and explicitly. And I remember the anger that he had towards the rest of the world, and I just didn't understand. I thought that my place in the world was secure. I was like, that's not what I think. Like, I remember, and obviously I don't have anger, but I didn't go through what he did. But I'm not as, not only, I am certain that my place in the world is not as secure or secure at all. And that being said, we're talking a lot of terrible things. This is what I told the kids, the parents of the preschool. I said, don't, because this whole year, we've been talking about Israel the whole time, and October 7th, and anti-Semitism, and campus, and it's like a headache after a headache. And I said to them, your Jewish identity, this will probably be a high holiday sermon, so you're getting an early version of it, but don't make your Jewish identity just based on they hate us. Don't have your Jewish identity shouldn't be, the foundation of your Jewish identity shouldn't be they hate us. Yeah, they do. That's not to say that they don't. They do. But if all of your Jewish identity is based on anti-Semitism, I think you are robbing yourself of the beauty of Judaism, right? I'm aware that, God forbid, if someone painted a swastika on this shul, on Saturday morning we'd have 2,000 people here. I know that. And I want them to be here. And I understand they should be here if there's a swastika. I mean, remember after Pittsburgh, we had this huge service at our synagogue. It felt like Kol Nidre. I mean, it was like open to the... And I don't want us just to, like, I want to talk about, like, about ethics and about the way we should treat people and the richness of our text and Shabbat and everything. I'm not willing to surrender all of that to anti-Semitism. Do I have to be more attentive to anti-Semitism than I thought? When I started out as a rabbi, I thought anti-Semitism was antiquated, and I was so wrong. That being said, I realize I have to pay more attention to anti-Semitism, but I'm not willing to make my whole life about anti-Semitism. I'm not willing to give up Pirkei Avot. So Janice was talking about a personal friend of hers from the East Coast who was pregnant in one of the displaced persons camps and after the war, and wondered about the wisdom of keeping a baby in a world like this, and ultimately decided, because to not have a Jewish baby is granting Hitler a posthumous victory. That's actually the work of Emil Fackenheim, who is a late great Jewish philosopher. Wrote a lot about this idea that as Jews now we have what's called the 614th commandment. For those of you familiar, traditionally Jews regard us as having 613 commandments. With all the commandments of the rabbis, 613. He said, no. After the Holocaust, there's a 614th commandment, which is not to grant Hitler a posthumous victory. In other words, that we have an obligation to keep Judaism going. The only thing that but we can't only have the 614th commandment, right? I don't want the kids at the preschool to think that I want them to have Jewish homes with mezuzahs on their door and Shabbat candles, not like as a, not only as a, giving the bird to Hitler, but also because I think there's value to that it gives their life. And so it's easy to fall into the hate and the, revenge and the, it's hard to let go of that. It's hard to and we shouldn't let go of the anti-Semitism. Maybe I did a little bit too much. But just what it is left unchecked, it will consume your soul. And that's why I don't want to hate the Palestinians. I don't. I'm also aware, that they didn't ask for this, like, for sure. But sometimes I'm like, well, they voted for Hamas. And they helped a long time ago. Yes, a long time ago. And there are a lot, you know, is talking to the soldiers. I'm like, how do you distinguish? Asked as a boy who I was talking to, how do you distinguish between who's Hamas and who's not? And he's like, all the houses I was in, all of them had tunnels. All of them. All of them had literature. Now, I want us to look at every one of them. I don't want to assume everyone does. But I don't want to be at a place where I hate the Palestinians, because I don't want to, and I don't live in Israel, so maybe it's, you know, good of me to say, don't hate the Palestinians. I live in Sherman Oaks. You know, it's easy for me to say. Like, yeah, it sure is, right? Like, what a place of privilege. And imagine that someone in Sderot is like, yeah, good for you. I just like dragged my kids down to the bomb shelter for the 4th time last night. It's all complicated. I don't have any. The only thing I know is I don't know anything, right? But I don't want to hate the Palestinians, and I wish for them. Then maybe this will be my leftist leanings here, and you'll see. Like, I understand. I understand their hope of going home. What their right of their return. I understand that.
How do you understand if
Well,
you've never been there?
No, because we had it for 2,000 years.
No, I don't mean that. I mean like all those people, the
Yeah.
same amount of people
Right.
from the Arab countries.
No, of course they've
Now
inflated the
nobody
numbers, and
nobody
they've
keeps the
they've
peace.
abused the term refugee, and it's all nonsense. And the way, like, 2.5, like, it's all nonsense, and the UN is corrupt. I agree with you all that. I'm just saying, I understand the yearning for them, that they have built the beginnings of what we experienced for 2,000 years. For 2,000 years, we asked to return home. And in those refugee camps, while they're feeding them the poison, which they are, of that terrible educational system, there is that yearning for them to return to the land of their ancestors. That's what they say. And it is completely overlooking any claim that we have on the land, right? I mean, like, Mahmoud Abbas, you know, wouldn't even acknowledge that the Jews were there beforehand. So it's insanity. I'm just saying, I understand, like, when I'm in a few weeks' time, I'm going to be in the German colony of Jerusalem, southern Jerusalem. And there are Arab houses. Like, I know what happened. They, you know, and I'm not even, I don't concede the point. Like, you read, like, these anti-Zionists, I don't concede the point that they were, like, there was no expelled or whatever it is from the land. War is complicated, and when you have, like, that, there were people who were expelled, there were people who left, who panicked, who left, there were people who were strategically in a bad position and needed, like, that's the result of war. And then you can't let people back in after, you know, you had to make room for 700,000 people who were kicked out of the Arab lands, our ancestors. So war is tough. I'm just saying, I understand their desire to return to a mythical kind of homeland. And it resonates with me, and therefore I think, like, okay, like, we have two different claims on the same piece of land, and so therefore can we come to a right? Unfortunately, no. Right. Can you come to an agreement? You're saying, like, okay, I get my ideal, I get your ideal. They seem to be mutually exclusive of one another. So let's just, like, split the, let's, and we haven't gotten there yet. I just read this book by this anti-Zionist, Khalidi, who's the professor at Columbia. And like, there's no good answer for him for what we should do. I mean, there is one, right there. Anyway, Michael, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, when you teach hate, addictive mentality, doesn't matter if you're in our colleges here, or you're in Palestine, you have Palestinians living in Israel.
Yeah.
Very happy. It's how you're educating these next generations.
That's right.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. They're educating. I'm glad to hear, though, that we're, they're educating them to hate. To hate. To, on October 7th, when someone comes into the kibbutz, and the first thing they do is they call their mother to say how proud their mother should be of them for slaughtering innocent Jewish people in their homes. The Nazis didn't do that. The Nazis, at least, they moved the concentration camps to Poland because they knew that the Germans, they didn't want the and the Einsatzgruppen. Look, I'm not like Mr. Defend the Nazis here. The Einsatzgruppen, the cases of like psychological break that they had because the barbarism that they did, there was like, I'm sure the Nazis are the worst of the worst. I'm just saying, like, I can't believe that someone would call up their mom and like, oh, mom, like, look, nachas, you should get nachas from what I'm doing. Like, it's just crazy.
In that phone call, Rabbi, the caller used a phone from one of his victims to call his mother and brag that he killed 10 Jews.
Right. That's
and
right.
That is hatred.
It's pure hatred.
Raw hatred.
Raw hatred.
And that was taught from little on.
That's right. In order to be that despicable, you've had to have been fed poison for your entire life.
Okay? And that's what Israel is dealing with.
It's terrible. And that's what the Western world, the stupid idiots on these college campuses, don't realize. They don't
want to realize, Rabbi. There's a saying in Spanish, no hay peor ciego que el que no quiere ver. There isn't a worse blind person than the one who doesn't want to see. The world doesn't want to see it.
I agree the world doesn't want to see. I do. You know what? I hope I don't know. I hope I'm a little more right than you are, only because it's I just hope most of them are like it's the latest liberal cause and they're registered with it. But who knows? It's like how many of them, like, they don't know what river, they don't know what sea. But but they still, from the river to the sea, and like on Harvard, don't call anybody fat. Like that an email gets sent, like, body shaming. That's the new microaggressions. You hurt my like, and that's good. Like, those are good things. Like, we shouldn't make fun of people for the way they like, that's good. But but you can go over here and you can call from the river to the sea and death to the Jews and go back to Poland. That's okay. I mean, like, that's insanity. And they're the smart ones. It's Harvard. Maybe we're better off at community college. Okay. I'm sorry. I gotta go. And this was, I'm not going to apologize if I made. I'm going to. I hope next year that my hope and prayer is that next year, that we won't be so distracted by such terrible, terrible things in the world. My hope and prayer is that the hostages can come home, that Israel can live in safety and security. I'll take safety and security. I want peace, but like, I'll hold out. Like, I'm not. Like, I'll take safety and security right now. And I really hope I do a better job for you next year, because I've been distracted the whole year. Like, I know, like, I don't even know what I taught today. But I just hope that that God willing, Michael and Adrian, I hope that your grandson serves with pride and dignity and the best of Jewish values and with strength and safety, and that he comes home safely. And I wish that for every single boy or girl, and they're boys and girls who are in uniform and doing such incredible service, incredible bravery in unspeakable circumstances. And God bless them all. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Have a good summer. I hope to see everyone at synagogue. And, some program announcements on, and if you need a ride because it's at night, like let me know. Just shoot me an email if you don't have my email, Susie, or if you need a ride for one of these programs, we can work that out for you. We can get someone to pick you up. So on May 28th, we're having the past president, the president emeritus of Northwestern University, Morton Shapiro, speak about concerns about college campus. I would just point out, like, I won't spill too much, that if Dr. Shapiro was in Northwestern, things would have been a little bit different there. It was a little bit, he has a different take than the current president does. And that's May 28th. On June 4th, I'm continuing my series called Reading with the Rabbi. If you've not read the book, that's okay. But it's just an exposure to important books. And you can come and you may decide to read the book after, or you may decide not to. It's the book 1948 by the Israeli historian Benny Morris. So that is June 4th, May 28th, June 4th. And then on June 19th, we're having a program here in conjunction with the Jewish National Fund, which will talk about a very interesting speaker from the Jewish National Fund. Okay, so I hope everyone has a good day. My phone is ringing, and it's probably my wife. No, it's not. Okay, and have a great day, everybody. Okay, all right, bye-bye.
We want to thank you very much for your teaching this year, and hope for. About the state of the world. And we hope you'll come back next year. And
I hope you invite me.
And I want to thank all of you for coming and being loyal MIT students. We're working on next year, and hopefully it will be a better world, so we don't have to talk about these.
I know Rosalie's not here today, but a big round of applause. A big round of applause to Susie and Rosalie for running such an incredible program, and God bless you. I mean, it's really great. Thank you.
Have a wonderful summer. Bye out there.
Parade is the 21st is the parade.
October 30th, yeah.
Yes, we'll be starting October 30th. The holidays are very late, so we start after the holidays. Leave your name tags. You may see them again next year. I hope you will be wearing them again.
So just who was that? Just who was that calling? I just got a text from a kid saying they're having a situation on the college campus. Could I call them? This is the world that we live in.
I take a lot of comfort that two of my grandchildren are wearing my husband's tefillin. He had Rabbeinu Tam and what? Oh, you're Rabbeinu Tam? Right, yeah. My husband got really hooked on Judaism.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I could pull off Rabbeinu Tam. You got to be really
No,
serious.
all my grandsons have them.
That's great.
Yeah. So the other half of this is, yes, the Holocaust. I can't divorce myself from the Holocaust and the victory, but it's the catalyst of making Judaism flourish in our lives. That's the lesson. That's the revenge I have.
Yeah, watch News Nation, Como.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't even watch TV. Is it good?
Yeah, well, he's in the middle,
Yeah.
and his ideas on government are quite different than what you hear from everybody else. And he has both sides. Anytime he has a conversation, he has both sides there.
Oh, good.
And if you live in a community like I did, talk to people. I have no sports, and most sports, I told you that I figured that's the one that's most striking now. Anna, the baby, I remember when he came to show his mother died.
classes over.
We did like one major thing a day. And getting around was great.
Yeah, would you have a van or something?
No, we used Uber. Urban Lyft, yep. 2 people would call, we'd get one for 6 people and 5 people. And we never had to wait more than 7 minutes.
That's great.
And you don't even have to park the car, you went up to the front door where you were going. It worked out great. I wouldn't go to a small town using that as a basis to get around, because who knew if there was enough cars?